Absolute darkness. The kind that swallows sound, swallows thought, swallows everything except the hammering of your own pulse in your ears. Radio crackle breaks through, distorted and thin, like a voice calling from the bottom of a well. Go 6 to Overwatch, Tango count. Static hiss, then another voice, younger, tighter with tension. 0 visual, 0 thermals, 0. Wait, single heat signature, elevated position, southwest ridge. Row. Rules of engagement. The question hangs in the black air for 3 full seconds. Somewhere in that darkness, someone is making a choice that will change everything. Cleared hot. A breath drawn through clenched teeth. The particular silence that comes before a trigger squeeze. Professional, controlled. The kind of calm that takes 20 years to build and 1 second to execute. Crack. The report echoes off canyon walls, rolling like thunder through the valley floor. On the screen back at Overwatch, thermal bloom. Target down. But something is wrong. The operator's voice comes back confused, uncertain in a way that trained men are never supposed to sound. Target down. Wait, target is wearing our IFF beacon. Another voice cuts in, older, harder, carrying the weight of command and something else underneath. Something that might be recognition, might be horror. Jesus Christ, that's Doc Reeves. The screen flickers, thermal fade, and in the silence that follows, one truth becomes inescapable. They just shot one of their own. Fade to black. 72 hours earlier. The C-130 Hercules hit turbulence at 23,000 feet over the Iraq-Syria border, and Lieutenant Sienna Reeves felt her stomach drop into her boots. Not from the aircraft shudder. She had logged enough combat flight hours to sleep through worse. No, this was something different. The feeling you get when you step off a ledge you cannot see. When you commit to a path that has no exit strategy, no extraction plan, no forgiveness if you get it wrong. She pressed her forehead against the window. Below, the desert spread out in shades of tan and gray, broken only by the dark scar of the Euphrates River cutting through ancient earth. Somewhere down there was Forward Operating Base Zenith. Somewhere down there, a clock was already ticking. The loadmaster appeared beside her seat, face wind-burned and professional. He had to shout over the engine roar. 10 minutes, ma'am. Better gear up. Sienna nodded. Her medical ruck sat between her boots, 90 pounds of trauma supplies, surgical instruments, pharmaceuticals, and blood products. Standard issue for a Navy combat medic heading into a hot zone. The ruck looked heavy. It was supposed to look heavy. What it actually contained was something else entirely. She had packed it herself 3 days ago in a secure room at Ramstein Air Base, Germany. Alone. No witnesses. The medical supplies were real. Combat application tourniquets, hemostatic gauze, chest seals, airways, the tools of her trade. But buried underneath, wrapped in sterile packages that would pass any inspection, were items that had nothing to do with saving lives and everything to do with taking control. A compact encrypted radio, burner phone with a single number programmed, USB drive containing malware sophisticated enough to make NSA coders weep, lockpick set disguised as surgical probes, and at the very bottom, wrapped in a blood pressure cuff sleeve, a handgun that did not exist in any military inventory. The C-130 banked hard left. Sienna's hand went to the dog tags around her neck, felt the worn metal through her uniform. The tags were real. The name on them was real. Lieutenant Sienna Reeves, 03, United States Navy, blood type O negative, no religious preference. Everything documented, everything verified, everything perfectly, suspiciously clean. What the tags did not say was that 18 months ago, Sienna Reeves did not exist. What they did not say was that the woman wearing them had been declared killed in action in Yemen. Her body never recovered. her file sealed and buried so deep that even Pentagon archivists would need a backhoe and a presidential order to find it. Some ghosts are born, others are made. Sienna Reeves was both. The Hercules touched down hard on Zenith's dirt runway, kicking up a brown cloud that turned the afternoon sun into a brass coin. The ramp dropped and heat hit like a physical blow. 118 degrees Fahrenheit, the kind of heat that makes you understand why ancient peoples believed in hell. Sienna shouldered her ruck and walked down the ramp into air that tasted of dust, aviation fuel, and the particular burnt smell that comes from a place where things explode regularly. A Humvee waited on the tarmac, engine running. The driver was a kid, maybe 22, with corporal stripes and eyes that had seen things corporals should not have to see. He gave her a quick salute. "Ma'am, welcome to Zenith. I'm Corporal Davis. I'll take you to the TOC. Tactical Operations Center, the heart of any forward base." Sienna climbed into the passenger seat and Davis gunned the engine. They rolled through the base perimeter, past HESCO barriers and guard towers, past rows of prefab housing units and the constant growl of generators. Zenith was small as FOBs went, maybe 300 personnel, built around a single mission: provide launch point for special operations in the region. And right now, that mission was about to go very wrong. Davis kept up a running commentary as he drove, the kind of nervous chatter young soldiers used to fill silence around officers. "You're replacing Doc Martinez. He caught an IED fragment last week. Nothing life-threatening but medevac to Landstuhl. Lucky bastard. Gets to spend 2 weeks in Germany while we're here sweating our asses off." Sienna made appropriate listening noises. Martinez. She had read his file, good medic, solid record, absolutely no connection to what was about to happen. Just wrong place, wrong time, wrong IED. Sometimes luck is its own kind of casualty. "You'll be working with SEAL Team 6, Davis continued. "They've got a big op coming up. Classified, obviously, but word is it's heavy. Commander Bridger runs a tight ship. Fair, but he doesn't miss much. You know what I mean." Sienna knew exactly what he meant. She had studied Commander Ethan Bridger's record until she could recite it in her sleep. 18 years naval special warfare, 247 combat missions. Silver Star, 3 Bronze Stars, Purple Heart. More importantly, a reputation for being smart, careful, and utterly incapable of accepting anything at face value. He was going to be a problem. He was supposed to be a problem. The Humvee stopped outside a low building with a radio antenna farm on the roof. Davis killed the engine. "TOC's inside. Commander Bridger's waiting. Good luck, ma'am." Sienna grabbed her ruck. "Thanks, Corporal." She pushed through the heavy door into artificial cold. Air conditioning running full blast, dropping the interior temperature 40 degrees from outside. The TOC was what you would expect. Banks of computer monitors, radio equipment, satellite uplinks, maps plastered on every wall. And in the center of it all, a man who looked like he had been carved from the same granite as Mount Rushmore. Commander Ethan Bridger was 42 years old but could have been anywhere from 35 to 50. SEALs aged differently than regular people. The job ground you down and built you back up in ways that did not show on a birth certificate. He stood 6'1", lean and hard, with gray threading through dark hair cut high and tight. His eyes were the color of sea ice, and they tracked Sienna's every movement as she approached. "Lieutenant Reeves." His voice matched his appearance, gravel and controlled force. "Welcome to Zenith." "Thank you, sir." Sienna dropped her ruck and stood at attention. Bridger waved that off. "At ease, we don't stand on ceremony out here." He gestured to a map table. "You've been briefed on your role." "Yes, sir. I'm here to provide combat medical support for SEAL Team 6 operations." That's the official version. Bridger crossed his arms. Unofficially, I want to know why they sent me a medic with a file that reads like a fairy tale. And there it was. Sienna kept her expression neutral, but inside, a small, cold part of her smiled. He had done his homework. Of course he had. Sir. Bridger pulled a folder from the table. Johns Hopkins Medical School, top 5% of your class. Navy SOCM course, graduated number 1. 14 months field deployment with Marine Expeditionary Units. 0 casualties under your care. 0. That's not just good, Lieutenant. That's statistically improbable. I'm thorough, sir. Thorough. Bridger opened the folder. Your record before Hopkins is thin, real thin. Standard Navy training, some hospital rotations, nothing remarkable. Then suddenly you're a superstar. What changed? Sienna had prepared for this question. She had 3 different answers ready, calibrated to different levels of scrutiny. For Bridger, she chose the one closest to truth. I lost someone, sir. Afghanistan 3 years ago. A Marine who bled out because I didn't know enough, wasn't fast enough. After that, I decided to never let it happen again. It was a good lie because it contained pieces of truth. She had lost someone, not in Afghanistan, not as Sienna Reeves, but the pain in her voice when she said it was real, and pain is the one thing you cannot fake convincingly. Bridger studied her for a long moment. Then he closed the folder. All right, you're here to do a job. Do it well, stay out of the way, and we'll get along fine. He turned to a staff sergeant standing nearby. Decker, get Lieutenant Reeves squared away. Quarters, chow schedule, the usual. Yes, sir. Decker, a compact man with a linebacker build, gestured for Sienna to follow. She picked up her ruck. As she reached the door, Bridger spoke again. Lieutenant. She turned. I don't believe in fairy tales. Keep that in mind. Sienna met his eyes. Neither do I, sir. The quarters they assigned her were Spartan even by military standards. 8 by 10 prefab box with a cot, footlocker, and a wall locker for hanging uniforms. The air conditioning unit rattled like it was trying to shake itself apart, but it had a door that locked from the inside, and that was all she needed. She waited until 2200 hours, 2200, 10 p.m. civilian time, when the base settled into the particular quiet of armed people trying to sleep while staying ready to kill. She locked the door, pulled her ruck onto the cot, and began unpacking. Medical supplies came out first. Real supplies, real equipment. She arranged them carefully on the footlocker, the kind of meticulous organization any inspecting officer would expect. Then she reached deeper into the ruck, finding the hidden pocket she had sewn into the bottom liner. The encrypted radio came out first. Smaller than a deck of cards, military grade, operating on frequencies that officially did not exist. She powered it up, keyed in the authentication codes, and waited. The response came in 15 seconds. Foxhound Actual, this is Greystone. Confirm insertion. Confirmed, Sienna whispered. I'm on location. Target is active, counting 72 hours from my mark. Copy 72 hours. Rules of engagement confirmed. No casualties, 0 margin for error. Understood, Foxhound out. She powered down the radio and tucked it back into its hiding place. Then she pulled out the USB drive and held it up to the flickering overhead light. Such a small thing. 8 gigabytes of malicious code. Enough to cripple every navigation system on the base. Enough to buy the hours she needed. But first she needed access. Sienna changed into PT gear, running shorts, t-shirt, running shoes. She tucked a small LED flashlight into her waistband and palmed the USB drive. Then she left her quarters and started jogging. Night runs were common on military bases. Good way to burn off stress, stay in shape, escape the relentless daytime heat. No one would question a new arrival getting familiar with the layout. She jogged past the motor pool, past the chow hall, past guard posts where sentries nodded at her in passing. She was just another officer keeping fit. Nothing to see. The communications building sat near the base perimeter, a double-wide trailer hardened with additional armor plating. Two satellite dishes on the roof, backup generator humming alongside. A single Marine stood guard at the door, M4 rifle slung across his chest. Sienna jogged up, breathing only slightly elevated. Evening. The Marine straightened. Young kid, 19 maybe. Evening, ma'am, can I help you? Just running, hot out there even at night. Tell me about it. The kid relaxed slightly. Officers who talked to enlisted like human beings were rare enough to be memorable. You're new on base. Got in today. Combat medic attached to SEAL Team 6. The Marine's eyes widened. SEALs, that's hardcore, you see a lot of action. Sienna shrugged, some you. Nah, I'm calm. I fix radios and reset passwords, not exactly door kicking. Perfect opening. Sienna gestured at the building. Speaking of passwords, I need to log into the medical database, set up my access. Think you could help me out? I'd rather do it tonight than deal with the admin hassle tomorrow. The Marine hesitated. Protocol said no unauthorized access after hours, but protocol also said officers outranked enlisted, and this was a medical officer asking for medical access. He made the calculation young Marines make when choosing between following the letter of the law and not pissing off a lieutenant. Sure, ma'am, come on in. He unlocked the door. The comm center interior was cool, filled with the electronic hum of servers and routers. 3 workstations currently unmanned. The Marine led her to one. Just need to authenticate you first. ID and password from your orders. Sienna pulled her CAC card, the common access card every service member carried. She swiped it through the reader and entered her credentials. The system accepted them. Green light. Access granted. You're good to go, ma'am. Take your time. Thanks, I'll just be a few minutes. The Marine returned to his post outside. Sienna was alone. She worked fast, pulled up the medical database interface and created her user profile, exactly what she had told the Marine she would do. Then, while that loaded, she plugged the USB drive into the second workstation. The malware executed automatically, invisible, elegant. It would lie dormant for now, waiting for her command. When activated, it would corrupt GPS navigation data across the base network, make coordinates drift by hundreds of meters. Turn precise military navigation into a guessing game. But not yet, not until the time was right. She finished her medical profile setup, ejected the USB drive and pocketed it. 2 minutes start to finish. She logged out and found the Marine outside. All set, thanks for the help. No problem, ma'am. Have a good run. Sienna jogged back to her quarters, showered, changed into duty uniform, lay on her cot staring at the ceiling until her watch read 5:30 hours. 5:30 a.m. She rose, dressed, and headed to the chow hall. The mess was already filling with early risers. Sienna grabbed a tray, powdered eggs, bacon that might have once known a pig, toast, coffee strong enough to strip paint. She found an empty table and ate methodically, fueling her body the way you fuel a machine before heavy use. Mind if I join you? She looked up. A SEAL stood holding a tray, maybe 30 years old, with the relaxed confidence that came from being very, very good at violence. His name tape read Jackson. Please, Sienna gestured to the seat across from her. Jackson sat. You're the new doc. Word travels fast. Small base. You sneeze in your quarters, someone in the TOC says bless you. He forked eggs into his mouth. I'm Chief Jackson, Team Sniper. Lieutenant Reeves. I know. Bridger briefed us last night, said you've got a good record. He say anything else? Jackson smiled. It was not a nice smile. He said to watch you, said your files too clean, said clean files make him nervous. Sienna sipped her coffee. What do you think? I think I don't get paid to think. I get paid to shoot people from very far away. Jackson leaned back. But since you asked, I think Bridger's got instincts like a shark. If he smells blood in the water, there's probably blood. Noted. Don't take it personal. He's suspicious of everyone, keeps us alive. Jackson stood, tray empty. We've got mission brief at 800. Bridger wants you there. Welcome to the team, Doc. He left. Sienna finished her coffee and checked her watch. 6:45. 1 hour 15 minutes until the brief. Enough time to make one more preparation. She returned to her quarters. From her footlocker she pulled a small notebook, the kind with a canvas cover that could survive desert conditions. Inside she had written medical notes, drug dosages, procedure checklists. The kind of thing any good medic would keep. But on the last page, barely visible in pencil, she had written a series of numbers. Coordinates, not for Zenith, for a location 120 kilometers east. A compound where 3 American prisoners were being held by a man who made ISIS look like amateurs. A compound that U.S. intelligence had only discovered 2 weeks ago after 6 months of ghost chasing. The prisoners' names were classified, their location was classified, and the rescue mission to extract them was so black that it did not officially exist. But Sienna knew. She knew because 72 hours ago, a gray-haired man in a windowless room at CIA headquarters had told her. "We need time," the man had said. His name was Carmichael, and he had the dead eyes of someone who sent people to their deaths and slept fine afterward. "Greystone can get them out, but we need 72 hours to move assets into position. 72 hours where nothing happens in that sector. No combat ops, no drone strikes, no reason for the target to execute the prisoners." "And if someone does launch an operation?" Sienna had asked. "Then 3 Americans die. An intelligence network we've spent 5 years building dies with them. So you need me to stop it. We need you to delay it, by any means necessary. You're authorized to use whatever methods you deem appropriate, but no casualties, none. If people die, it becomes an international incident. Keep everyone alive, keep everyone confused, and buy us 72 hours. Sienna had looked at the mission brief, at the photographs of 3 faces she did not know, at the words "execute upon capture" printed in red across the top. "I'll need full autonomy." "You'll have it. And if I'm compromised?" Carmichael had smiled then, cold and empty. "Then you were never here. This conversation never happened. Sienna Reeves is a combat medic doing her job. That's all anyone will ever know." Ghost Protocol. The kind of mission that only exists in the space between official policy and operational necessity. The kind where success meant no one would ever know you succeeded, and failure meant no one would ever know you existed. Sienna had taken the mission, not because she believed in Carmichael, not because she believed in the CIA or the intelligence community or any of the machinery that ground people up and called it national security. She had taken it because somewhere in that compound, 120 kilometers away, was a name she recognized. A name from another life. A name that belonged to someone she had thought was dead. And now she had 72 hours to save him. At 800 hours, Sienna walked into the TOC. The SEAL team was already assembled. 12 men, all watching her with the particular intensity that special operators reserve for outsiders. Bridger stood at the map table. "Lieutenant Reeves, good, we can begin." He activated an overhead projector. A satellite image appeared showing a compound surrounded by desert. "This is Operation Widowmaker. Our target is here, approximately 40 kilometers north of the Syrian border. Intelligence indicates an HVT, high-value target, is using this location as a command center. The HVT is called Al-Rashid, arms dealer supplying chemical weapons to ISIS affiliates." Sienna studied the image. Standard compound layout. High walls, guard towers, single vehicle entrance. Maybe 50 hostiles, probably more. A hardened target. "Mission is direct action," Bridger continued. "Infill via helicopter at 300 tomorrow. Fast rope to roof, breach and clear, neutralize HVT, extract via ground convoy. Duration, 90 minutes. Questions?" One of the SEALs raised a hand. "Rules of engagement. Weapons free on anyone armed or presenting threat. We're not taking prisoners." Sienna felt the words like a physical blow. Weapons free. No prisoners. This was a kill mission. And if it launched tomorrow, 70 kilometers east, 3 Americans would die. She could not let that happen. "Sir," she spoke up, "what's the medical protocol?" Bridger looked at her. "You'll be at the helicopter landing zone providing trauma support if needed. You won't be going in with the assault team." "Understood. I'll need to prep supplies tonight. Run through scenarios." "Do what you need to do. Brief is complete. We roll at 200 tomorrow. Get some rest." The SEALs filed out. Sienna lingered, pretending to study the map. When the room cleared, she pulled out her phone, the burner with the single programmed number. She typed a message. "WIDOWMAKER launching 300. Need immediate delay." The response came in seconds. "Execute Phase 1. You have approval." Sienna deleted both messages and pocketed the phone. Then she walked out of the TOC into the brutal morning sun. The base had a small gym, really just a tent with weights and pull-up bars. Sienna went there at 1300 hours when she knew most personnel would be at chow or in the shade trying to escape peak heat. She needed to be seen, needed to establish her pattern. The good lieutenant, staying fit, managing stress the healthy way. She ran through a workout, bodyweight exercises, pull-ups, core work. Nothing that would draw attention, just another officer maintaining standards. And while she worked out, she studied the gym's layout, noted the power cables running along the floor, noted the breaker box in the corner, padlocked but accessible. At 1600 hours, she returned to her quarters, showered again, changed into fresh utilities, lay on her cot with a medical textbook open on her chest, the picture of a dedicated professional studying her craft. At 1730, Corporal Davis knocked on her door. "Ma'am, dinner's being served if you're hungry." "Thanks, Corporal, I'll be there shortly." She waited until his footsteps faded. Then she rose, pulled on a baseball cap and left her quarters, but not toward the chow hall, toward the communications building. The same young Marine stood guard. Different shift, same protocol. Sienna approached with a friendly smile. "Evening, hot one today." "Yes, ma'am, you need something." "Quick database check. Won't take but a minute." The Marine hesitated. "Ma'am, I should probably check with." Sienna let her smile fade slightly. Let her voice drop into that particular tone officers use when they are being reasonable, but will not remain reasonable much longer. "Lance Corporal, I need to verify blood supply inventory before tomorrow's operation. It's a combat medical issue. Are you going to be the one who tells Commander Bridger that a SEAL bled out because you wouldn't let the doc access the medical database?" The calculation happened behind the Marine's eyes. Career preservation versus protocol. Career 1. No, ma'am, go ahead. She went inside. This time, she did not bother with the medical database. She went straight to the second workstation, logged in with admin credentials she had lifted from the first visit, and activated the malware. The code did its work silently. GPS satellites would continue broadcasting. Ground receivers would continue receiving, but the processing software would introduce random errors. Small at first, growing larger. By midnight, every navigation system on base would be showing positions 300 meters off actual. By 200, when the SEAL team prepped to launch, they would be essentially flying blind. She logged out, wiped the keyboard with her sleeve, and left. All set, the Marine asked. All set, thanks again. She walked away before he could respond, returned to her quarters, locked the door, and waited. At 2200 hours, her encrypted radio vibrated. She pulled it out. Foxhound Greystone, confirm Phase 1 execution. Confirmed, GPS corruption active, will manifest by midnight. Acknowledged, stand by for Phase 2 when needed. Standing by. Sienna powered down the radio. Then she did something she had not done in 18 months. She pulled from her footlocker a small photograph, edges worn soft from handling. The photo showed two people in desert camouflage, a man and a younger woman, both armed, both smiling. The man had gray in his hair and laugh lines around his eyes. The woman looked different, harder, a face from before. The man's name was Marcus, Captain Marcus Hale, Delta Force Combat Applications Group, the finest soldier she had ever known, her mentor, her training officer, the closest thing to a father she had ever had. And now he was one of the 3 prisoners being held 120 kilometers away. Sienna had not taken this mission for Carmichael, had not taken it for the CIA or national security or any of the hollow reasons people used to justify sending operators into hell. She had taken it because when you lose everyone, when they declare you dead and bury your file, the only thing left is the one person who taught you how to survive. She was not here to delay a mission. She was here to buy time for a rescue. And if that meant sabotaging a SEAL team, if that meant becoming the enemy, if that meant burning every bridge and making herself a target, then so be it. 72 hours to save a ghost. The clock was running. At 100 hours, the alarm started. Sienna was lying on her cot, fully dressed, when the first klaxon wailed through the base. She was up and moving before the second alarm sounded, grabbing her medical ruck and sprinting toward the TOC. The base was chaos, personnel running in every direction, voices shouting, the particular brand of organized panic that happens when systems fail and no one knows why. She burst into the TOC. Bridger was there, surrounded by his team, everyone talking at once. GPS is down. Not down, corrupted, showing bad data. Backup nav isn't any better. Comms are fine, but we can't get accurate coordinates on anything. Bridger's voice cut through the noise like a blade. Enough, status report, one person. A tech sergeant stepped forward. Sir, all GPS receivers on base are showing position errors. Started small around 2300, got progressively worse. Current error margin is plus or minus 400 meters. We're effectively blind for navigation. What about backup systems? Also compromised. Whatever's causing this is in the software, not the hardware. Can you fix it? Working on it, sir, but it's going to take time. Bridger slammed his palm on the table. The sound was like a gunshot. We launch in 1 hour. I need navigation. Sir, I can't guarantee. That's not what I asked. Sienna watched from the doorway, watched Bridger's jaw tighten, watched the SEALs exchange glances. This was not how operations were supposed to go. This was Murphy's Law manifest. Bridger turned and saw her. Lieutenant, you have medical gear that uses GPS. No, sir. All my equipment is analog. Good, at least something works. He turned back to his team. All right, we're not scrubbing the mission over a nav glitch. We go old school, paper maps, compass work, visual reference points. It's how we did it before satellites. Sir, Jackson spoke up, inserting into a hot zone without GPS is what we're doing, Chief. Get your gear squared away. We launch on schedule. The room emptied. Sienna moved to leave, but Bridger called her back. Lieutenant. She turned. You're good with computers. Careful now. Basic stuff, sir. I can work a laptop. Ever seen anything like this? System-wide GPS corruption. No, sir. Seems unusual. Bridger stared at her, those ice-chip eyes searching for something. Unusual, yeah, that's one word for it. He turned back to the map table. Get some rest. Tomorrow's going to be long. Sienna left the TOC and walked slowly back to her quarters. Around her, the base continued its frantic troubleshooting. Technicians running cables. Officers conferring in urgent huddles. The SEAL team loading gear into helicopters with the grim determination of men committed to a bad plan because the alternative was admitting defeat. She reached her quarters, locked the door, sat on her cot. 68 hours remaining. Phase 1 complete. But Phase 1 was just delay. Phase 2 would require something more. At 2:45 hours, 15 minutes before launch, the situation escalated. Sienna heard the commotion from her quarters, raised voices, running feet. She grabbed her medical ruck and rushed outside. A crowd had formed near the motor pool. She pushed through. One of the SEALs, a petty officer named Hendricks, lay on the ground unconscious. Blood matted his hair. 2 SEALs knelt beside him while a third scanned the area with weapon raised. Bridger arrived at a sprint. What happened? Don't know, sir. Found him like this. Someone hit him from behind. Sienna pushed forward. Let me see. The SEALs made space. She dropped to her knees, fingers finding Hendrick's carotid pulse, strong and steady. She checked his pupils, reactive, palpated his skull. Decent hematoma forming but no depression fracture. He'll live, she announced. Concussion for sure, needs observation but not critical. Who did this? Bridger demanded. No one had an answer. Hendricks had been on perimeter patrol. Alone. Someone had come up behind him, struck him professionally, and vanished. Jackson examined the ground. No boot prints. Whoever it was knew how to move. And knew our patrol routes, another SEAL added. This was planned. Bridger's jaw worked. Get Hendricks to medical. Lock down the base. No one moves without a buddy, and someone find me whoever did this. The crowd dispersed. Sienna helped load Hendricks onto a stretcher. As they carried him away, she felt eyes on her back, turned. Bridger stood 20 feet away, watching, not helping, not coordinating the search, just watching her. Their eyes met. He did not look away. At 300 hours, Operation Widowmaker was officially scrubbed. You could not launch a precision raid when your navigation was corrupted and your personnel were being attacked by an unknown enemy. Bridger called it. Stand down. Postpone 12 hours while they sorted the situation. 12 hours, not 72, but it was a start. Sienna returned to her quarters, stripped off her gear, lay down, closed her eyes. But sleep would not come. Because somewhere in the dark, she knew Bridger was thinking, putting pieces together. GPS corruption that no one could explain. A SEAL attacked during patrol. A new arrival with a too-perfect record. He was not stupid. Eventually, he would connect the dots. Eventually, he would come for her. At 700 hours, she found out how much time she had left. The knock on her door was hard and official. She opened it. Bridger stood there with Jackson and 2 other SEALs. Their expressions told her everything. "Lieutenant Reeves," Bridger said, voice flat, "we need to talk about what you've been doing." Bridger stood in the doorway with 3 SEALs behind him, and Sienna knew this moment had been coming since the moment she stepped off that C-130. You could not sabotage a military base and expect to remain invisible forever. The only question was how much time she had bought and whether it would be enough. She kept her hands visible, relaxed at her sides, showed no tension in her shoulders, no flutter in her pulse. Just a combat medic interrupted during her morning routine, slightly confused by the aggressive posture of her commanding officer. "Sir," her voice carried exactly the right note of professional concern. Bridger stepped inside. Jackson and the other 2 SEALs followed, filling her small quarters until the air felt compressed. The door stayed open. Not an arrest. Not yet, but close. "I'm going to ask you some questions," Bridger said. His voice had dropped into that flat, emotionless register that interrogators use. The tone that says, "I already know the answers, I'm just seeing if you'll lie. And I need you to think very carefully before you answer." "Of course, sir." "Where were you last night between 2200 and 2300 hours?" "Here, sir, in my quarters, studying medical protocols for the operation." "Anyone see you?" "No, sir, I was alone." "And between 200 and 245? "Asleep, sir, until the alarms woke me." Bridger nodded slowly. "Chief Jackson, tell the lieutenant what you found." Jackson stepped forward. In his hand he held a clear evidence bag. Inside was a small piece of fabric, maybe 2 inches square, dark green. Sienna recognized it immediately. A torn piece of her PT shirt from last night. "We found this snagged on the fence line near where Petty Officer Hendricks was attacked," Jackson said. "It's from Navy-issue PT gear, same gear you were wearing yesterday." Sienna looked at the fabric, let confusion cross her face. "Sir, half the base wears that PT gear. It could be from anyone." "Could be," Bridger agreed. "Except we checked the duty roster. You're the only person who signed out for a night run last night, and Corporal Martinez at the comm building remembers you visiting twice. Once at 1730, once at 2200. The walls were closing in, but walls only mattered if you planned to stay inside them. "I did visit the comm center," Sienna said. "Twice. I needed to access the medical database to prep for the operation. The Marine on duty can confirm I was only checking inventory data." "We talked to him," Jackson said. "He also mentioned you were alone in there, both times, with full access to base systems." "Systems that are now corrupted," Bridger added. "Corrupted in a way that our tech people say requires someone to physically introduce malware into the network, someone with access and knowledge." Sienna met his eyes. "Sir, are you accusing me of sabotaging Operation Widowmaker?" "I'm asking you to explain a series of coincidences. You arrive on base. Within 24 hours our GPS fails, one of my men gets attacked, and the mission gets scrubbed. That's not coincidence, Lieutenant. That's pattern." The moment stretched. Sienna ran the calculations. She could maintain the denial, force them to prove it. Buy maybe another 6 to 12 hours while they gathered evidence, built a case. But 12 hours was not enough. She needed more. Or she could do something Carmichael had not authorized, something that would either save the mission or destroy it completely. She chose destruction. "You're right," she said quietly. The room went still. Jackson's hand moved fractionally closer to his sidearm. The other two SEALs shifted their stance. Bridger's expression did not change, but something flickered in those ice-chip eyes. Surprise, maybe, or satisfaction at being proven correct. "Say that again," Bridger said. "You're right. I sabotaged the mission. I corrupted the GPS. I attacked Hendricks." The words came out flat, factual. "And I'd do it again." "Why?" "Because if Operation Widowmaker launches in the next 60 hours, 3 American prisoners will die." The silence that followed was absolute. Not even breathing. Just 5 people in a small room and words that changed everything hanging in the air between them. Bridger moved first. He stepped closer, close enough that Sienna could see the gray stubble on his jaw, smell the coffee on his breath. His voice dropped to barely above a whisper. "Explain now." So she did. Not everything. Not the ghost protocol or Carmichael or the fact that one of the prisoners was the man who had trained her to become what she was. But enough. Enough to make them understand that this was not betrayal. It was something far more complicated. 120 kilometers east of here, Sienna said, there's a compound controlled by a man named Viktor Volkov, former Spetsnaz. Now he runs a private army and sells weapons to whoever pays. 6 months ago, a CIA operation went bad in his territory. 3 Americans were captured. Volkov has been interrogating them ever since. "If CIA has prisoners," Jackson said, "why aren't we mounting a rescue?" "Someone is. Task Force Greystone. They're moving assets into position right now. But they need 72 hours to get through the terrain without being detected. 72 hours where nothing happens in this sector. No military operations. No reason for Volkov to think a rescue is coming." "And if we launch Widowmaker?" Bridger asked. "Volkov assumes it's the opening move of a larger operation. He executes the prisoners and disappears. We lose 3 Americans and years of intelligence work." "So you were ordered to stop us?" "I was ordered to delay you, by any means necessary. No casualties, just buy time." Bridger stepped back. He looked at Jackson. The 2 men had worked together long enough that they could communicate without words. Jackson gave a tiny shake of his head, not disagreement, just processing. "Who authorized this?" Bridger asked. "Classified." "Classified?" Bridger's laugh was cold. "You sabotaged a military operation on classified orders. You assaulted one of my men, and you expect me to just accept that?" "No, sir, I expect you to verify it. Call JSOC. Ask for authorization code Foxhound Actual. They'll confirm." "And if they don't?" "Then I'm a traitor and you should arrest me." Sienna kept her voice steady. "But if they do, then you need to stand down for 60 more hours. Let Greystone do their job. Let 3 Americans come home." Bridger stared at her for a long moment. Then he turned to one of the SEALs. "Get me a secure line to JSOC, priority traffic." The SEAL left. The others remained, a silent honor guard in case Sienna decided to run. She would not run. There was nowhere to go, and running would mean abandoning Marcus to whatever hell Volkov was inflicting. 5 minutes passed, 10. The SEAL returned with a satellite phone, handed it to Bridger. The commander stepped outside to take the call. Through the open door, Sienna could see him speaking, face carved from granite. The conversation lasted 3 minutes. When he came back inside, his expression had not changed, but the phone was no longer in his hand. "JSOC confirms authorization code Foxhound Actual," he said. They also confirm that I'm to provide no interference with your mission. They say you're operating under compartmented orders that supersede my command authority. Relief flooded through Sienna, but she kept it off her face. They also said, Bridger continued, that if you fail, if those prisoners die, it's on you. Not them, not JSOC, you personally. He stepped closer again. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to sit in this room under guard while we verify your story through other channels. If it checks out, maybe I don't throw you in the brig. But if I find out you're playing us, if this is some elaborate cover for something else, I will personally ensure you spend the rest of your life in a cell at Leavenworth. Are we clear? Crystal, sir. Good. Jackson, post a watch. No one in or out without my authorization. Jackson nodded. Bridger left. The door closed, and Sienna sat on her cot with a SEAL standing guard, knowing that she had just committed to a path with no exit strategy. But she had bought time. 60 hours, maybe it would be enough. 240 kilometers to the east, in a compound surrounded by desert that looked like the surface of Mars, Colonel Viktor Volkov stood in his operations center and studied a map with the intensity of a man planning murder. He was 56 years old and looked older. Spetsnaz service aged you faster than regular military. 30 years of wet work, black ops, and doing the things that made regular soldiers wake up screaming. His face was weathered leather, his hands scarred, his eyes the color of dirty ice. He wore civilian clothes now, khakis and a faded polo shirt, but he still moved like a soldier, still thought like one. The compound around him was a fortress, high walls topped with razor wire, guard towers at each corner, 200 men under his command, all veterans, all loyal because he paid better than any government ever would. This was not ideology. This was business, and business was excellent. On the table before him lay satellite photos of Forward Operating Base Zenith. Volkov tapped a finger on one image, where helicopters sat on the tarmac. The Americans were preparing something, he said to the man standing beside him. Anton Petrov, his intelligence officer, former GRU. What do we know? SEAL Team 6, Petrov replied. Arrived 3 weeks ago, standard rotation. But yesterday they were loading for a mission, then they stood down, unexplained. Equipment failure. Possibly, or something else. Petrov pulled out another photo. This arrived this morning from our source inside their perimeter. The photo showed a woman in U.S. Navy uniform. Young, dark hair pulled back, face that could belong to anyone. But Volkov had learned long ago that the most dangerous people were the ones who looked like everyone. Who is she? Combat medic, Lieutenant Sienna Reeves, arrived yesterday. Johns Hopkins Medical School exemplary record. 2 exemplary. Petrov smiled. That's what I thought, so I ran her through our database, the real one, Langley's ghost list. He laid down a second photo. Older, different hair, different bearing, but the same face. Beside it, a service record. Captain Kira Vaughn, Petrov read. Former Delta Force Combat Applications Group, declared killed in action, Yemen 2019, but the body was never recovered. Volkov picked up both photos, studied them side by side. She changed her identity. Quite thoroughly. New name, new background, new service record. Someone with serious pull helped her disappear. And now she appears at a forward base preparing to run operations near our territory. Volkov set the photos down. What is she really doing there? Unknown, but the SEAL mission stood down after she arrived. That could be coincidence. I don't believe in coincidence. Volkov turned to the map. His compound sat in a region where 3 borders met, A lawless zone where governments pretended they had no operations and soldiers pretended they were not soldiers. It was perfect for his work, perfect for staying invisible. But if the Americans were sending ghosts, that meant they knew something. And what they knew was probably in the cell block beneath his feet. Increase security on the prisoners, Volkov ordered. Double the guard. I want thermal imaging on all approaches. If the Americans are planning a rescue, I want to know the moment they cross the perimeter. And the prisoners themselves. Volkov considered 3 Americans, 1 CIA case officer who had stopped talking after the 3rd interrogation session, 2 Special Forces operators who would not break no matter what he did to them. He had been keeping them alive as bargaining chips, potential intelligence assets, but if a rescue was coming, their value changed. He walked to a wall map showing his area of operations. Red pins marked various locations: Syria, Iraq, the Kurdish territories, and one older pin, faded now, marking Yemen. The American captain, Volkov said slowly. The Delta operator, how long have we had him? Petrov consulted a tablet. 4 years, 7 months. Captured Yemen, 2019. Moved here when we consolidated operations in 2021. And the other 2? Captured together Syria 8 months ago. Different operation. CIA intelligence gathering gone wrong. Volkov nodded. That had been fortunate. When his men had stumbled onto the CIA team, he had not expected to capture 2 Americans alive. But circumstances had aligned. Now he had 3 prisoners from 3 different operations, 3 different time periods, 3 leverage points. They're connected, Volkov said. The medic, the captain from Yemen, the stand down at Zenith. It's not 3 separate events, it's one operation. A rescue attempt. Perhaps, or something more subtle. Volkov studied the ghost list photo again. This woman survived when her team died in Yemen. The captain we hold was part of that same operation. She thinks he's dead. We never reported his capture. As far as American intelligence knows, Captain Marcus Hale died in that compound. But he didn't. No, he didn't. And now, 4 years later, someone discovers he's alive. Someone who was there, someone who escaped. Volkov smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. This is personal for her, not just a mission, revenge, redemption, whatever drives soldiers who should be dead. What do you want to do? Prepare them for transport, Volkov said. We move all 3 prisoners to the secondary location at sunset. If someone comes looking, they'll find empty cells. And if this ghost wants to find her captain, she'll have to work much harder. Understood. Petrov left. Volkov remained at the table studying the photo of Sienna Reeves, or Kira Vaughn, or whoever she really was. Delta Force did not train medics. They trained killers, which meant this woman was far more dangerous than her current cover suggested. Who sent you? Volkov asked the photo. And what do you really want? He would find out. He always did. And when he did, he would ensure that this ghost stayed buried. At Forward Operating Base Zenith, Bridger was making calls. Not to JSOC. They had already confirmed what they would confirm, which was nothing. Compartmented operations meant compartmented information. If he wanted real answers, he needed to go around the system. He sat in his quarters with a laptop and a satellite uplink, running searches through databases that officially he should not have access to. But 18 years in naval special warfare meant 18 years of cultivating contacts, trading favors, and knowing where the bodies were buried. Literally, in some cases. He started with Sienna Reeves. The official record was clean, too clean: birth certificate from Maryland, public school records, Johns Hopkins admission, everything documented, everything traceable. But when he dug deeper, Looking for the connective tissue that made a life real, he found gaps. No social media presence before medical school. No friends from childhood who showed up in photos. No digital footprint at all until she was 20 years old, and then suddenly she existed fully formed. People did not work that way. Real people left traces. Messy, human, authentic traces. Sienna Reeves had none of that. She was a construct, a legend in spy terminology, a false identity built from real documents, which meant whoever she had been before was someone worth hiding. Bridger pulled up classified military databases. This required more gymnastics, more favors called in. He reached out to a contact at SOCOM headquarters, a warrant officer who owed him for a situation in Afghanistan that never made it into official reports. The warrant officer was reluctant. This was career-ending territory, but Bridger pushed, and eventually the man sent over a file. The file was heavily redacted. Black bars covered most of the text, but enough remained to piece together a story. Operation Harvest Moon, Yemen, 2019. Delta Force raid on an al-Qaeda compound. 6 operators killed when the target turned out to be a trap. Names redacted, details redacted. Outcome, catastrophic failure. 1 survivor listed, name redacted, current status deceased. Bridger stared at that word, deceased, but the file was dated 2019, and the photo attached, taken from a training exercise, showed a face he recognized. Sienna Reeves, or the woman who now called herself that. She had been Delta. She had survived an operation that killed her entire team, and then someone had declared her dead and given her a new life. The question was why. Bridger closed the laptop. He had enough pieces now to see the shape of the puzzle, even if the picture remained unclear. Sienna was not just a combat medic. She was an operator, highly trained, sent on a mission that required her to sabotage her own side. That took a particular kind of person, the kind who could compartmentalize, who could become whoever the mission needed. The kind of person who was either a hero or a threat, and sometimes both at once. He needed more information, and there was one source he had not yet tried. Bridger left his quarters and walked across the base to the medical bay. Hendricks was there, the SEAL who had been attacked. He sat on an exam table, head bandaged, looking irritated at being sidelined. "Commander," Hendricks said, trying to stand. "Stay seated." Bridger pulled up a chair. "How's the head?" "Ringing like a church bell, but I'll live. Doc says no concussion, just a good knock." "You remember anything about the attack?" Hendricks frowned, concentrating. "I was on patrol, perimeter sector 3, about 2:30 hours. I heard something behind me, started to turn. Then nothing. Woke up with you standing over me." "You hear footsteps, see movement." "No footsteps. That's what's weird. I should have heard something on the gravel, but it was silent, like they were floating." "They or she," Hendricks looked uncomfortable. "I know what people are saying, that the new doc did this, but that doesn't make sense. She's what, 130 pounds? How does she drop a 200-pound SEAL without making noise?" "Training," Bridger said quietly. "A lot of very specific training." He left Hendricks to rest and walked back outside. The sun was climbing toward noon, temperature already past 100 degrees. Across the base, SEALs were maintaining weapons, running drills, staying sharp while they waited for new orders. They were frustrated. Operators hated sitting idle. They wanted to execute the mission they had trained for. But if Sienna was telling the truth, executing that mission would kill 3 Americans. And if she was lying, then Bridger had just allowed a traitor to operate freely for another 60 hours. Either way, he needed more than her word. He needed proof. Jackson appeared at his elbow. "Sir, we've got a situation." What kind? Patrol just reported gunfire. 5 clicks north. Small arms, single shooter. Stop now, but they want to investigate. Bridger felt something cold settle in his chest. Where exactly? Jackson showed him a map on a tablet. The location was marked in red. It was along the route that Operation Widowmaker would have taken. The exact route. Get a fire team together, Bridger ordered. We're going to take a look. They rolled out in 2 Humvees 20 minutes later. Bridger, Jackson, and 4 other SEALs, fully armed and expecting contact. The desert stretched out in every direction, broken only by rock formations and the occasional dead tree. Nothing moved except heat shimmer. They reached the coordinates. Jackson called a halt. The team dismounted and spread out in tactical formation, weapons up, scanning for threats. Over here, one of the SEALs called. You need to see this. They gathered around what he had found. Shell casings. Dozens of them scattered across the sand, brass gleaming in the sun. Jackson picked one up, examined it. 300 Win Mag, sniper round, long-range precision work. How many shots? Bridger asked. Jackson counted casings. 22, all from the same position. He pointed to a low ridge 50 meters away. Shooter was up there. They climbed to the ridge. The position was professional. Rocks arranged for cover, cleared firing lane, excellent sightlines down the valley. Whoever had shot from here knew what they were doing. What were they shooting at? Another SEAL wondered. Jackson scanned the valley floor with binoculars. Then he stopped. Boss, 900 meters, check it out. Bridger took the binoculars. At 900 meters, almost invisible against the sand, were targets. Man-sized silhouettes cut from plywood and propped up with stakes. There were 8 of them arranged in a rough line. Someone was practicing, Bridger said. At 900 meters, Jackson added. In this heat with wind, that's expert-level shooting. They hiked down to examine the targets. Each one had been hit, not center mass, which would be the obvious choice, but in specific locations, radio equipment, weapon systems, gear that would disable an opponent without killing. The 8th target was different. This one had been hit in the head. Perfect shot, dead center. Mission kill shots, Jackson said quietly. 7 to disable, 1 to execute if necessary. Bridger studied the pattern. This was not random practice. This was rehearsal. Someone planning an engagement where they would need to stop multiple targets, neutralize them non-lethally, but retain the option for lethal force. Someone preparing for exactly the kind of mission Sienna had described. Search the area, Bridger ordered. I want to know who was here. They spread out. It was Jackson who found it, tucked under a rock near the shooting position. A small notebook, the kind soldiers carried for field notes. He opened it carefully. Inside were range calculations, wind speed corrections, elevation adjustments, all the mathematics of precision shooting. And on the last page, written in careful print, were 3 names. Captain Marcus Hale, Delta Force. Sergeant First Class James Corwin, Special Forces. Chief Warrant Officer David Chen, CIA SAD. The 3 prisoners. Bridger took the notebook back to the Humvee and pulled out his satellite phone. He called a number he was not supposed to have, one that connected to a gray office in a gray building where gray people made decisions that did not officially exist. This is Commander Bridger, SEAL Team 6. I need information on 3 names. He read them off. The voice on the other end was synthesized, gender-neutral, untraceable. Authorization. Foxhound actual cross-reference. Silence, then, confirmed. Information is classified but will be released under your authorization code. Stand by. 60 seconds of dead air. Then the voice returned. Captain Marcus Hale, Delta Force Combat Applications Group. Missing in action Yemen 2019. Body never recovered, presumed deceased. Sergeant First Class James Corwin, 5th Special Forces Group. Captured during intelligence operation Syria current year. Status, prisoner of war. Chief Warrant Officer David Chen, CIA Special Activities Division. Captured during intelligence operation Syria current year. Status, prisoner of war. Corwin and Chen were captured together. Affirmative, same operation, 8 months ago. And Hale, he was captured 4 years ago. Correct, but his capture was never confirmed. He was declared KIA when his team was wiped out in Yemen. Intelligence suggested he died in the initial assault. But he didn't die. Recent signals intelligence indicates he may have been taken prisoner and held continuously since 2019, when our source reported 3 American prisoners at the target location. Facial recognition software matched archived photos of Captain Hale. He appears to have been moved from Yemen to Syria when the target consolidated his prisoner operations in 2021. Bridger felt the pieces click into place. Volkov had been holding Marcus Hale for 4 years, had moved him to Syria, then captured 2 more Americans 8 months ago. 3 prisoners from 3 different operations, now held in the same location. Is there an active rescue operation? We can neither confirm nor deny. Can you confirm if preventing military operations in this sector serves an active rescue timeline? Longer pause. We can confirm that premature military action in that sector could compromise ongoing intelligence operations and endanger American lives. Further details are not available at your clearance level. The line went dead. Bridger lowered the phone. Around him, his team waited. They had been together long enough that they could read his face, see the calculations happening behind his eyes. It's real, Bridger said finally. The prisoners are real. Hale has been held for 4 years, the other 2 for 8 months. Volkov consolidated them in one location. The rescue is real, and she's telling the truth. So what do we do? Jackson asked. We give her 60 hours, and we pray she knows what she's doing. They drove back to base in silence. Bridger's mind was racing, piecing together the larger picture. Sienna, or whoever she really was, had been part of the operation that lost Hale in 2019. She had survived. She had been declared dead. And now she had volunteered to come back, to put herself in danger, to sabotage her own side, all to buy time for a rescue that might not even succeed. That was not the action of a traitor. That was the action of someone trying to save people she cared about. Someone willing to sacrifice everything for loyalty. It was also the action of someone very dangerous. When they reached base, Bridger went directly to Sienna's quarters. The guard outside snapped to attention. Bridger dismissed him and entered alone. Sienna sat on her cot exactly where she had been 4 hours ago. She looked up when he entered. No fear in her eyes, just patience. I found your shooting position, Bridger said without preamble. 900 meters, 8 targets, perfect mission kill shots, and I found the notebook with the prisoners' names. You were meant to, Sienna replied. I needed you to verify my story without compromising operational security. So you left a trail for me to follow. I left breadcrumbs. You're smart enough to follow them. Bridger sat on the footlocker opposite her. Tell me about Marcus Hale. The name hit Sienna like a physical blow. Bridger saw it, the way her shoulders tensed fractionally, the way her breath caught for just a second. She recovered quickly, but not fast enough. He was my training officer, she said quietly. Delta Force selection course. He taught me everything. how to shoot, how to move, how to survive when everything goes wrong. Operation Harvest Moon. Yes. 6 killed, you survived. I survived because Marcus stayed behind to cover our retreat. He was supposed to extract with us, but when the ambush happened, someone had to hold the line. He volunteered. Sienna's voice was flat, but underneath Bridger heard the weight of survivor's guilt. We thought he died there. For 4 years I thought he was dead. We all did. But he wasn't. No, he was captured, held prisoner, tortured for 4 years. She looked at Bridger. And now I have a chance to get him out. So yes, I sabotaged your mission. Yes, I attacked one of your men. And yes, I would do it again. Because if there's even a 1% chance I can bring Marcus home, I'm taking it. Bridger understood. He had lost teammates too. Knew what it meant to carry that weight, to wake up at night wondering if you could have done something different. And he knew what it meant to get a second chance. "What do you need from me?" he asked. The question surprised her. "Sir, you've got 60 hours, but Volkov isn't stupid. If there's a rescue coming, he'll see it. He'll move the prisoners or kill them. So you need a contingency. What do you need?" Sienna studied him. This was a test, and they both knew it. Bridger was offering help, but he was also measuring her, seeing if she really had a plan or if she was running on desperation and hope. "I need you to keep your team visible," Sienna said. "Maintain normal operations. Make it look like you're still planning to run Widowmaker eventually. Keep Volkov's attention on you while Greystone moves into position." Misdirection. Exactly. You're the obvious threat. The SEALs everyone knows about. While he's watching you, he won't see the real rescue team coming from the east. And if he does see them, then I go in. Sienna's voice was cold. "I'm already dead officially. One more ghost in the desert won't matter." Bridger nodded slowly. "All right. We'll run decoy operations. Keep Volkov looking west. But Reeves or Vaughn or whatever your real name is, understand something. If this goes wrong, if Americans die because you played us, there is nowhere on this planet you can hide." "I know." "Good," he stood. "You've got 60 hours, don't waste them." He left. Sienna sat alone in her quarters, feeling the walls close in. 60 hours, 3,600 minutes, not nearly enough time. But it was what she had, and she would make it enough. Because somewhere to the east, in a cell beneath the desert, Marcus Hale was waiting, still alive, still fighting, still believing that someone would come for him. And she would not let him down. Not this time. The next 48 hours passed in a strange limbo. Bridger kept his team running drills, maintaining readiness, putting on a show for any surveillance that might be watching. They ran helicopter exercises, rehearsed building breaches, checked weapons and gear with the meticulous care of professionals preparing for combat. All of it was theater. All of it was designed to keep Volkov's attention focused on the west, while Greystone moved into position from the east. Sienna remained under informal house arrest, not locked up but monitored. She spent the time preparing medical supplies, organizing trauma kits, doing the things a combat medic would do before an operation. But in the quiet moments when no one was watching, she pulled out that old photograph. Marcus and herself, before everything went wrong. She wondered if he would recognize her now. 4 years was a long time. 4 years of torture could change a person in ways that went beyond physical. She had changed too, become someone different, someone harder. But underneath, they were still the same people, still soldiers, still survivors. She hoped that would be enough. On the 58th hour, everything changed. The alert came at 300 hours. Sienna was half asleep when the klaxon wailed. She was up instantly, grabbing gear, rushing outside. The base was in full mobilization, SEALs running to helicopters, engines spooling up, the controlled chaos of a unit launching under emergency conditions. She found Bridger at the TOC, surrounded by his team. His face was grim. "What happened?" she demanded. Bridger looked at her. "Volkov moved the prisoners 2 hours ago. Intel says he's transporting them to a secondary location. If Greystone doesn't intercept in the next 12 hours, we lose them." Sienna's world tilted. "Where are they moving them to?" "Unknown. Greystone lost satellite coverage due to weather. They're blind." "Then we have to find them." "We don't have authorization to operate in that sector. And even if we did, we don't know where to look. Volkov has a dozen possible locations he could use." Sienna's mind raced. 12 hours. Not enough time for Greystone to reorient. Not enough time to launch a coordinated rescue. The mission was falling apart. Unless she did something impossible. "I can find them," she said. "How?" "Because I know how Marcus thinks. If Volkov is moving them, Marcus will leave a sign. Something for rescuers to follow. I just need to get close enough to see it." Bridger shook his head. "That's suicide. Volkov has 200 men. Even if you find the prisoners, you can't extract them alone." "I'm not extracting them. I'm marking their location for Greystone. Get them coordinates, they can do the rest." "And how do you plan to get close? Walk across 120 kilometers of desert?" Sienna met his eyes. "I need a helicopter, drop me 20 clicks out. I'll infiltrate on foot, locate the prisoners, mark the position. Then I disappear." "You're talking about a solo deep penetration into hostile territory, with no backup and no extraction plan." "Yes. That's insane." "It's the mission." Bridger stared at her. Behind him, Jackson and the other SEALs watched. This was the moment, the decision point where everything either came together or fell apart completely. Finally, Bridger turned to Jackson. "Get a bird ready. Combat load, suppressed weapons, night vision gear. We leave in 30 minutes. Sienna asked. "You think I'm letting you run this alone? If you're going in, my team is providing overwatch. We stay back, keep eyes on you via drone. If it goes bad, we extract you." "That's not part of the plan." "It is now. Take it or leave it." Sienna knew better than to argue. "I'll take it." They prepped in silence. Sienna changed into full combat gear, traded her medical ruck for a tactical pack loaded with water, ammunition, and the tools of her old trade. Suppressed pistol, suppressed carbine, night vision, enough explosives to cause chaos if needed. She looked at herself in a mirror. This was not Lieutenant Sienna Reeves, combat medic. This was Captain Kira Vaughn, Delta Force operator, the person she had tried to bury, the person she had become in order to survive, the person she needed to be one more time. The helicopter lifted off at 3:45 hours, flying low and dark. No running lights, no transponders, nothing that would show on enemy radar. They crossed into hostile territory at 4:20, and Sienna felt the familiar sensation of crossing the line, of leaving the world where rules mattered and entering the place where only survival counted. At 4:40, the helicopter flared over the drop zone. Sienna fast roped down, hit the ground, and rolled into cover. The helicopter was gone in seconds, just a whisper of sound fading into the night. She was alone, 120 kilometers from base, 40 kilometers from Volkov's last known position, and somewhere in the darkness ahead, Marcus Hale was waiting. Sienna checked her gear, checked her weapon. Then she started moving east toward the unknown, toward whatever waited in the desert night. Behind her, invisible in the sky, a SEAL drone followed. Bridger's voice came through her earpiece, quiet and steady. Foxhound Viking 6, we have you on thermal, you're clear for 5 kilometers. After that we lose line of sight. You'll be on your own. Copy that, Viking, going silent. She switched off her radio, cut the last connection to friendly forces. Now it was just her, the desert, and the mission. 54 hours remaining. And somewhere ahead, a ghost she had thought dead was waiting to be saved. Or to die trying. The desert at night was a different world. Temperature dropped 40 degrees from daytime high, turning sweat into chill. Stars blazed overhead with an intensity that city dwellers never saw, the Milky Way a river of light across black sky. And in that vastness, Sienna moved like a shadow among shadows. She had covered 8 kilometers in the first hour, moving fast across open ground while she still had the advantage of distance from any watchers. Then she slowed, became more deliberate. This was enemy territory now. Every ridge could hide an observer. Every valley could be a kill zone. Her night vision goggles turned the world into shades of green. Rocks became geometric shapes. Desert scrub became abstract patterns. And heat signatures, if there were any, would bloom like pale flowers against the cool background. She moved using techniques learned over years of training. Heel to toe placement to minimize sound. Body low to break up her silhouette. Frequent stops to scan and listen. This was not running. This was stalking. The patient, methodical approach of a predator who knew that haste meant death. At kilometer 12, she found the first sign. It was subtle. A cairn of rocks beside a dry wadi, 3 stones stacked in a specific pattern. To anyone else it would look like random geology. But Sienna had been trained by Marcus Hale, and Marcus had a language of stones that only his students knew. 3 rocks, largest on bottom. That meant personnel. The direction they pointed indicated bearing, and scratched into the largest stone, barely visible even under night vision, was a number. 4. 4 personnel had passed this way, recently enough that Marcus had time to leave the sign, which meant he was alive, alert, and expecting rescue. Sienna felt something loosen in her chest, a knot of tension she had carried for 4 years. He was alive, not just surviving, fighting, still the operator she remembered. She keyed her radio, breaking silence for 10 seconds. Viking 6 Foxhound, I have first marker. 4 personnel bearing 087, continuing. Bridger's voice came back, barely audible over the encrypted channel. Copy, Foxhound. Be advised, we're tracking vehicle movement 15 clicks northeast of your position. Multiple contacts. Proceed with caution. Roger, going silent. She moved on. The bearing took her deeper into broken terrain, where erosion had carved the desert into a maze of gullies and ridges. Good for concealment, bad for observation. She could walk into an ambush and never see it coming. At kilometer 18, she found the second marker. This one was more urgent. Rocks arranged in an X pattern, the universal signal for danger, and beside it, pressed into soft sand, a handprint. Large, male. The heel of the palm showed a scar pattern Sienna would recognize anywhere. Marcus had been here, within the last hour, and he was warning her. She dropped into a crouch, weapon up, scanning 360 degrees. Nothing moved. No heat signatures. No sound except wind over stone. But the warning was clear. Whatever lay ahead was hostile ground. Sienna pulled out a small tablet, checked the topographic map. The terrain ahead funneled into a narrow valley, maybe 200 meters wide, with high walls on either side. Perfect ambush terrain. If Volkov was smart, and everything suggested he would have that valley watched. She could go around, add hours to her approach, or she could go through and risk detection. The clock in her head said 52 hours remaining, not enough time for caution. She went through. The valley was a study in shadows. Moonlight painted one wall silver, left the other in absolute black. Sienna moved along the dark side, using the natural concealment, placing each step with the care of someone walking through a minefield. Her breathing was controlled, rhythmic, the 4-count method that kept heart rate steady. In for 4, hold for 4, out for 4, hold for 4. The physiology of calm under stress. Halfway through the valley she felt it, the particular sensation of being watched, not paranoia, not imagination, the trained operator's awareness that hostile eyes were tracking movement. She froze, became a statue. Her silhouette broke up against the rocks behind her, and in night vision she knew she would look like just another geological feature. But someone was out there, someone with optics and training. Seconds crawled past, 30, 60, 90. Her legs began to ache from holding position, but she did not move. Motion drew the eye, stillness was invisible. At 2 minutes she heard it, a voice, distant, speaking in Russian. The words were unclear, but the tone was questioning. Someone on radio reporting to a superior. She caught fragments. Section 7 clear, continuing patrol. The watcher moved on. Sienna waited another full minute before she moved, and when she did it was with the smooth deliberation of water flowing downhill. No sudden movements, nothing to trigger peripheral vision. She cleared the valley and found herself looking down into a basin. And there, 3 kilometers ahead, was Volkov's compound. It was smaller than the satellite photos had suggested. Maybe 40 buildings clustered around a central structure, guard towers at the perimeter, vehicles parked in neat rows, lights burning despite the late hour. This was not a temporary camp. This was a permanent installation built by someone who intended to stay. Sienna glassed the compound with her scope, studying the layout. 200 personnel, Bridger had said. She could see maybe 30 moving around, which meant the rest were either sleeping or inside buildings. Guard rotation suggested professional discipline. These were not amateurs. And somewhere in that compound, Marcus Hale was being held. She keyed her radio one more time. Viking 6, Foxhound, I have eyes on target. Compound is hot. Recommend Greystone move to assault position. I'm going to mark the package location. Negative, Foxhound. Greystone is still 12 hours out. Weather delayed their movement. You need to pull back and wait. 12 hours. In 12 hours, Volkov could move the prisoners again, could execute them, could disappear into the desert with 200 men and vanish like smoke. Viking, I can't wait 12 hours. If I pull back now, we lose them. Foxhound, you're one operator against 200 hostiles. There is no scenario where you go in there and come out alive. Sienna looked at the compound, looked at the lights. Somewhere in there Marcus was waiting, the man who had trained her, who had believed in her when no one else did, who had stayed behind so that she could live. Viking, I'm not here to come out alive. I'm here to bring them home. Foxhound, do not. She switched off the radio, cut the connection. Now it was just her and the mission, the way it had always been, the way it was always going to end. She began the final approach. At Forward Operating Base Zenith, Bridger stood in the TOC and felt his world narrow to a single point of failure. On the screen in front of him, a drone feed showed Sienna's heat signature moving toward the compound. One pale dot approaching an installation that bloomed with dozens of signatures. She's going in, Jackson said quietly. She's actually going in. Get me Greystone on secure line, Bridger ordered. Now. A comms operator worked the satellite uplink. 30 seconds later, a voice came through the speakers. Cold, professional. the voice of someone who made life and death decisions before breakfast. This is Greystone Actual. Go ahead. This is Viking 6. My asset is about to infiltrate the target compound solo. She needs backup. How fast can you move your team? Minimum 8 hours. We're still navigating border checkpoints. That's not fast enough. She'll be compromised or dead in 8 hours. Then she should abort and exfil. Bridger felt rage boil up, forced it down. She won't abort. One of your prisoners is her former team leader. She's going in whether we support her or not. Silence on the line. Then, who is your asset? The file says Lieutenant Sienna Reeves, but her real name is Captain Kira Vaughn, former Delta Force. Declared KIA Yemen 2019. Operation Harvest Moon. Another pause, longer this time. When Greystone Actual spoke again, the professional coldness had fractured slightly. Harvest Moon, Marcus Hale's operation. Affirmative. Hale is one of your prisoners, and Vaughn is about to walk into hell to get him out. Jesus Christ. The voice was quiet now, almost human. She was the one who survived, the one who made it out. We thought the trauma broke her. That's why we gave her a new identity. Let her start over. Well, she didn't stay started over. She came back. And now she's your best chance of keeping those prisoners alive until you can arrive. Commander Bridger, I cannot authorize a solo rescue operation. The risk is. I'm not asking for authorization. I'm telling you what's happening. Now you can either help or get out of the way. The silence stretched. Then, what do you need? I need to know where the prisoners are being held. Building location, cell layout, guard patterns, everything you have. Sending data now. But Commander, understand something. If this goes wrong, if Captain Vaughn is captured, she carries knowledge that could compromise a decade of intelligence operations. We cannot allow her to be taken alive. The implication was clear. If Sienna was captured, someone would have to ensure she did not talk, permanently. She knows the stakes, Bridger said. She's accepted them. Then God help her. Greystone out. The line went dead. Data began flowing onto Bridger's screens. Satellite imagery, thermal scans, guard rotation schedules. Everything Greystone had collected over months of surveillance. And buried in that data, a map showing 3 cells in the compound's basement level. Bridger studied the layout. The cells were at the heart of the compound, surrounded by multiple layers of security. You could not walk in there. You had to fight in. And fighting meant killing. Lots of killing. Jackson appeared at his shoulder. Boss, we can't let her do this alone. We don't have authorization to cross the border. If we go in there, it's an act of war. Since when do we care about that? Jackson's voice was steady. Certain. She's one of us. Delta SEAL doesn't matter. She's an operator in trouble. We don't leave operators behind. Bridger looked around the TOC. His team was there. 12 of the finest warriors America had ever produced. Men who had volunteered to do violence on behalf of people who would never know their names. Men who understood that sometimes you had to break the rules to honor the code. All right, Bridger said. Get the team kitted up. Full combat load. We insert in 40 minutes. Where are we inserting to? 3 clicks from the compound. Close enough to provide support. Far enough to maintain deniability if this goes sideways. Bridger turned to the comms operator. Send a message to JSOC. Tell them we're running a training exercise. Radio silence for the next 12 hours. Sir, they'll know. They'll suspect. But as long as we don't confirm, they can maintain plausible deniability. By the time anyone figures out what really happened, it'll be over. The operator nodded and started typing. Jackson moved to gather the team. and Bridger looked back at the screen, at the single heat signature approaching 200 enemies. "Hold on, Captain," he whispered. "Cavalry's coming." Sienna reached the compound perimeter at 200 hours. This close, she could hear voices, smell cooking fires, feel the vibration of generators through the ground. The place was alive with human presence, and she was about to walk into the middle of it. The outer wall was 12 feet high, topped with razor wire. Guard towers at each corner held sentries with searchlights and machine guns. A frontal assault was impossible. A stealth approach was barely possible. She circled to the eastern wall where shadows were deepest, studied the patrol pattern. Guards walked the perimeter every 15 minutes, two-man teams with radios. Between patrols there was a window, 90 seconds of opportunity. She waited for the next patrol to pass, counted to 60, then she moved. Her approach was soundless. Years of training had taught her how to move across gravel without noise, how to control her breathing to near silence. She reached the wall and pulled climbing gear from her pack, magnetic handholds designed for metal surfaces, but the wall was concrete. She adjusted, found gaps in the concrete where rebar showed through, used those as purchase points, climbed hand over hand, moving with the controlled strength of someone who had done this 1,000 times in training. At the top, she encountered the razor wire, used bolt cutters to snip through, creating a gap just wide enough to slip through. The wire caught her sleeve, tore fabric. She ignored it, dropped down the other side into a narrow alley between buildings. She was inside. The compound was a maze, buildings connected by covered walkways, vehicles parked in clusters. She moved through the spaces between, a ghost in the machinery of war. Twice she had to freeze as personnel walked past, close enough to touch. Neither saw her. Darkness was her ally. So was the assumption that no one could possibly be stupid enough to infiltrate alone. She worked her way toward the central building, the one Greystone's data identified as holding the cells. It was larger than the others, reinforced concrete with small windows set high in the walls. Two guards flanked the entrance, armed with AK-pattern rifles. Sienna found a position in the shadows 30 meters away and studied the problem. Two guards, too many witnesses if she took them down by force, and the noise would bring dozens more. She needed a distraction. From her pack she pulled a small device, a remote-activated noisemaker used in training to simulate gunfire. She set the timer for 2 minutes, then crept to the far side of the compound. Found a vehicle, attached the device to the undercarriage, crept back to her observation position, and waited. At exactly 2 minutes the device activated. A sharp crack echoed across the compound, sounding exactly like a rifle shot. Then another, then a burst of automatic fire simulation. The effect was immediate. Guards shouted. Weapons came up. Personnel poured out of buildings, running toward the sound, including the two guards at the entrance. Sienna moved, crossed the 30 meters in a dead sprint, hit the door. It was locked, but she had come prepared. Lockpick set, practiced for exactly this scenario. 15 seconds of work and the lock clicked open. She was inside. The interior was dimly lit. A corridor stretched ahead, concrete floor and walls. The air smelled of mildew and something else, something metallic and organic. Blood, old pain. She moved down the corridor, weapon up, reached a stairwell, descended into basement level. This was where Greystone's map said the cells would be. At the bottom of the stairs, she encountered the first guard. He was young, maybe 25, sitting at a desk playing on a phone. He looked up as she appeared. For a moment they stared at each other. Then his hand went for the rifle leaning against the wall. Sienna was faster. She crossed the distance in 3 strides, caught his wrist before he could touch the weapon, and struck him in the throat with controlled force. Not enough to kill, enough to silence. He dropped, gasping, and she cable-tied his wrists and ankles, gagged him with his own shirt. The corridor beyond held 3 doors, 3 cells, 3 prisoners. She checked the first door, peered through the small window. Inside, a man sat slumped against the wall. Asian features, maybe 40 years old, thin from malnutrition. David Chen, the CIA officer. He was alive. The second cell held another man, younger, muscular despite obvious weight loss. James Corwin, Special Forces. He looked up as Sienna's shadow crossed the window. Their eyes met. His widened. He had seen enough combat to recognize a rescuer when one appeared. The third cell. Sienna looked through the window and felt time stop. Marcus Hale sat against the far wall. He was thinner than she remembered, gray hair now white, face lined with new scars, but his eyes were clear, alert, and when he saw her face in the window, recognition blazed across his features. She worked the lock. It took longer than the exterior door. This one was more sophisticated, but eventually it clicked. She pulled the door open. Marcus rose to his feet, moved toward her with the careful deliberation of someone who had been hurt but refused to show it. When he spoke, his voice was rough from disuse but still carried the authority she remembered. "Kira, they told me you were dead. They told me the same about you." Her own voice threatened to break. She forced it steady. "Are you mobile?" "I can move." He gestured to the other cells, Chen and Corwin. "Next on the list, can you hold a weapon?" "Give me one and find out." She handed him her sidearm, moved to unlock the other cells. Within 3 minutes, all 3 prisoners were free. Chen could barely walk, leaning heavily on Corwin. But Corwin was solid, a professional who had been waiting for exactly this moment. "What's the extraction plan?" Corwin asked. "We're going out the way I came in. Greystone is inbound but still hours away. I'll get you to the perimeter, then we move to an exfil point 3 clicks north." "Against 200 hostiles?" Marcus asked. "What's the force package?" Sienna met his eyes. "Just me." For a moment Marcus stared, then he laughed. It was a harsh sound unused to humor. "You always were crazy. Glad to see that hasn't changed." They moved back up the corridor. Sienna took point, Marcus covered rear with the sidearm, Corwin supported Chen. They reached the ground floor. The distraction had ended and guards were returning to posts. But the building's exit was 20 meters ahead, 20 meters to freedom. They were 15 meters away when the door opened, and Viktor Volkov walked in. He was not what Sienna expected, not a brutish thug or obvious villain. He looked like a businessman. Casual clothes, calm expression, the bearing of someone completely in control. Behind him came 4 armed guards. Volkov stopped when he saw them. His eyes moved from prisoner to prisoner, then settled on Sienna. A smile touched his lips. "Captain Vaughn," he said. His English was perfect, barely accented. "I was wondering when you would arrive. Welcome to my home." Sienna's weapon came up, tracking center mass. "Stand aside." "So you can walk out?" "I don't think so." Volkov's guards raised their rifles. "You're outnumbered, outgunned, and you're standing in the middle of my compound with 200 of my men between you and freedom. There is no scenario where you leave here alive." "Then I'll take you with me." "You could try, but then these guards shoot your friends, all that sacrifice for nothing." Volkov stepped closer. "I know who you are, I know what you are. Operation Harvest Moon. Yemen 2019. 6 Delta operators died that night. Except they didn't all die, did they? One survived. One escaped." Sienna felt cold settle in her bones. "How do you know about that?" "Because I was there. Volkov's smile widened. I was the Spetsnaz advisor to the militia forces. I'm the one who set the ambush. I'm the one who killed your team. The world narrowed to Volkov's face. In her mind, Sienna was back in Yemen, back in the compound where everything went wrong. She could see her teammates falling, could hear Marcus screaming at her to run, could feel the weight of being the only one who lived. And the man who had caused all of that was standing in front of her. Her finger tightened on the trigger. "Do it," Volkov said softly. "Kill me. But understand, the moment you do, my men kill everyone in this room, including you, including your precious Captain Hale. Is revenge worth that price?" Sienna's training warred with emotion. Training said assess, calculate, find the angle. Emotion said pull the trigger and consequences be damned. Behind her, Marcus spoke. "Kira, don't. He killed them. He killed everyone." "I know, but if you do this, he kills us too, and then he wins." The moment stretched. Sienna's weapon did not waver, neither did Volkov's smile. Then from outside came a sound, distant at first, then growing, the rhythmic thump of helicopter rotors. Volkov's smile faded. He moved to the window, looked out. Sienna saw his expression change, saw calculation replace confidence. "It seems," Volkov said slowly, "that you brought friends." 3 helicopters appeared over the compound, Black Hawks, running dark. They flared over the central yard and SEALs fast roped down, 12 operators hitting the ground in combat formation. Bridger's voice came through Sienna's earpiece, loud enough that she heard it clearly. "Foxhound, Viking 6, we're at your position. All hostiles are weapons free." Chaos erupted. Volkov's guards turned toward the new threat. Sienna moved. She closed on Volkov, weapon pressed against his spine. "Call your men off," she said, "or I drop you right here. You won't shoot, not in the back, not like this. You're still a soldier. Soldiers have rules." "I'm not a soldier anymore. I'm something worse." Outside, gunfire erupted. SEALs engaged Volkov's forces with practiced efficiency. Flash bangs, breaching charges. The compound transformed into a combat zone. Volkov tried to move. Sienna struck him in the kidney with the weapon's muzzle, drove him to his knees. His guards spun back, weapons coming up. "Drop them," Marcus ordered, his borrowed pistol tracking between targets. "Drop them or I start shooting." The guards hesitated. Professional soldiers making professional calculations. 4 against 4, but 2 of their targets were wounded prisoners barely able to stand. The math favored them. Then the building's door exploded inward. Jackson came through, rifle up, followed by 3 more SEALs. The guards saw the odds shift and made the smart choice. They dropped weapons. "Secure them," Jackson ordered. His team moved to cable tie the guards. Jackson looked at Sienna. "You good?" "I'm good." "Prisoners?" "Mobile. Chen needs medical support." "Got a corpsman outside." Jackson moved to Volkov, still on his knees. "And who's this?" "Victor Volkov, commander of this facility, wanted by 3 governments and Interpol." "Outstanding, we'll take him too." Jackson hauled Volkov to his feet. "You're coming with us, Colonel. Courtesy ride to a nice cell in Gitmo." Volkov said nothing, but his eyes stayed on Sienna, cold and calculating. They moved outside into controlled chaos. The SEAL team had secured the compound with brutal efficiency. Volkov's forces, caught by surprise and facing superior training, had surrendered or fled. Bodies littered the ground. Most were wounded, not dead. SEALs preferred to capture when possible. Bridger appeared from the darkness. He looked at Marcus, at Corwin, at Chen, then at Sienna. "Mission complete." "Mission complete," she confirmed. "Good. Let's get out of here before someone decides this was worth starting World War III over. They loaded prisoners into the helicopters. Volkov went into a separate bird under heavy guard. Sienna helped Chen aboard, then moved to where Marcus stood looking back at the compound. 4 years, he said quietly. 4 years in that hole. I never thought I'd see sky again. I'm sorry I didn't come sooner. You came when it mattered, that's all that counts. Marcus turned to her. They told you I was dead. They told me the same thing. What did you do after Yemen? I became someone else, tried to forget. She paused. It didn't work. It never does. Marcus put a hand on her shoulder. The gesture was gentle, paternal. But you came back, that's the hard part. Most people, when they get out, they stay out. You chose to return. Someone had to. Someone chose to, that's different. He squeezed her shoulder. I'm proud of you, Kira. I know I never said it enough before, but I'm proud. The words hit harder than any bullet. Sienna felt something crack inside, some wall she had built to keep functioning. Tears threatened. She forced them back. We need to move, she said, voice rough. We do, but first you need to know something. Marcus's expression turned serious. When I was captured, Volkov tried to break me. Torture, interrogation, the full program. And every time it got bad, every time I thought about giving up, I thought about you. About my team, about the people I'd trained. That kept me alive, kept me fighting. So if you think you owe me for training you, understand that you already paid that debt. You saved my life just by existing. They stood in the desert night, two soldiers who had survived the unsurvivable. Then Marcus smiled. Now let's get on the helicopter before someone shoots at us again. They lifted off 10 minutes later. The compound fell away beneath them, becoming small, then insignificant, then invisible. Sienna watched it disappear and felt the weight of 4 years begin to lift. She had done it, brought them home, all 3 prisoners alive and safe. But as the helicopter crossed back into friendly territory, as the adrenaline began to fade, she wondered what came next. She was Kira Vaughn again, the ghost made flesh, the operator who was supposed to be dead. You could not go back to being a ghost after this. Too many people knew, too many witnesses. Forward Operating Base Zenith appeared on the horizon. They landed at 600 hours, with sunrise painting the eastern sky gold and red. Medical personnel rushed forward to take Chen and Corwin. Marcus insisted on walking off under his own power, and no one argued with him. Bridger approached Sienna as she climbed out. We need to debrief. I know. You understand there will be consequences. I disobeyed orders, crossed international borders, conducted an unauthorized combat operation on foreign soil. I'll testify that I acted alone, that you tried to stop me. Bridger almost smiled. That would be a lie. It would be the truth that matters. You were following orders. I was the one who went rogue. We'll see what the brass says. Bridger looked toward the horizon. For what it's worth, I'd do it again. So would I. They stood in silence for a moment. Then Bridger extended his hand. You're a hell of an operator, Captain Vaughn. She shook his hand. You're not bad yourself, Commander. The next 3 weeks were a blur of debriefings, after-action reports, and classified meetings in windowless rooms. Sienna told her story again and again, how she had infiltrated the compound, how she had freed the prisoners, how the SEALs had arrived just in time to extract them. What she did not tell them was how close she had come to executing Volkov in cold blood, how her finger had tightened on that trigger, how only Marcus's voice had pulled her back from that edge. Some truths were better left unspoken. The investigation into Bridger's actions took longer. There were calls for court-martial, accusations of recklessness. But then the three prisoners gave their testimony, told how Captain Vaughn had risked everything to save them, how Commander Bridger had provided support when no one else would. And slowly the narrative changed, from rogue operators to heroes, from court-martial to commendation. 4 weeks after the rescue, Sienna received orders to report to a classified location in Virginia. She flew commercial, wearing civilian clothes, carrying nothing but a small duffel. The address led to an unmarked building surrounded by woods. Inside, she was escorted to a conference room. Marcus was there, looking healthier now, weight returning, color back in his face. Bridger stood beside him in dress uniform, and at the head of the table sat a two-star general whose name she recognized but had never met. General Marcus Webb, JSOC commander, the man who controlled all special operations for the United States military. "Captain Vaughn," Webb said, "please sit." She sat. Webb studied her with the intense focus of someone who had spent a career evaluating warriors. "I've read the reports," he said, "all of them. Yours, Commander Bridger's, Captain Hale's, and I've reviewed your history. Operation Harvest Moon, your service with Delta, your transition to Sienna Reeves, the whole story." Sienna said nothing, waited. "What you did was reckless," Webb continued. "Sabotaging a military operation, infiltrating a hostile compound alone, forcing Commander Bridger to disobey orders. By every regulation, you should be facing charges." He paused. "But regulations don't account for everything. They don't account for loyalty, for courage, for the kind of decision that prioritizes lives over rules." Webb opened a folder. "You saved 3 American lives. You brought home prisoners who were assumed dead, and you did it knowing there would be consequences." He pulled something from the folder, a small blue box. "Captain Kira Vaughn, by order of the President of the United States and the Secretary of Defense, you are hereby awarded the Silver Star for conspicuous gallantry in action against an enemy of the United States." Sienna felt the words hit like a physical impact. The Silver Star, third highest military decoration, given for valor in combat. Webb opened the box. Inside, the distinctive star-shaped metal gleamed. "Stand up, Captain." She stood. Webb pinned the medal to her uniform, stepped back, saluted. Marcus and Bridger saluted too. And for a moment, Sienna stood in that room with 3 of the finest warriors America had produced, recognized not as a ghost but as one of them. Webb lowered his salute. "Now we need to discuss your future. You're officially dead. Kira Vaughn doesn't exist in any database, but after this operation that fiction is difficult to maintain, so you have a choice. Sorry. You can return to being Sienna Reeves, combat medic, good career, good life, away from the sharp edge, or you can come back to the unit. Delta is always looking for experienced operators, especially ones who have proven they can operate alone in denied territory. Come back to Delta. Return to the world of covert operations, classified missions, and the particular violence that kept America's enemies awake at night. It was tempting. It was what she had been, what she was good at. But it was also what had nearly broken her. With respect, sir, I'm a medic now. That's who I choose to be." Webb nodded slowly. "That's what Captain Hale said you would choose. He also said you're the most stubborn operator he ever trained." Marcus smiled. "I said dedicated, not stubborn." "Same thing." Webb closed the folder. "All right, Captain. You'll return to being Lieutenant Reeves. We'll maintain your cover identity. But if we ever need someone for an operation that requires your particular skill set, we'll call. Fair?" "Fair, sir." "Good, dismissed." Sienna saluted and turned to leave. Marcus caught her at the door. Kira, before you go, I wanted to say thank you. Not just for the rescue, for everything. You could have stayed buried. Instead, you came back. That took more courage than any firefight. You would have done the same. Maybe, but you did it. He extended his hand. If you ever need anything, anything at all, you call me. They shook hands. Then Sienna walked out of the building, into Virginia sunlight, carrying the weight of the silver star and the knowledge that she had finally, truly, closed the circle. 2 months later, she was back at Walter Reed Medical Center, back to being Lieutenant Sienna Reeves, combat medic. She worked in the trauma ward, treating soldiers wounded in places whose names never made the news. It was good work, important work, the kind that let her sleep at night. Most nights, she was reviewing patient charts when her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. Coffee, same place, Marcus. She smiled, finished her charts, changed into civilian clothes, drove to a small cafe in Arlington that specialized in being unmemorable. Marcus sat at a corner table, looking relaxed in jeans and a polo shirt. He looked good, healthy, like 4 years in captivity were beginning to fade. Captain, he greeted her. Lieutenant, she corrected. Right, I keep forgetting. He gestured to the chair across from him. How's the medical work? Satisfying, I'm helping people. Good, you deserve that. He sipped his coffee. I'm retiring, officially this time. 28 years is enough. I'm going to buy a cabin in Montana and learn how to fish. You'll be bored in 6 months. Probably, but I'll be bored while looking at mountains instead of looking at sand. That's progress. He set down his cup. The real reason I wanted to see you is to say something I should have said years ago. In Yemen, when everything went wrong, I ordered you to run, to leave us behind. And you did. You followed orders. Sir, you don't have to. Let me finish. You followed orders and it saved your life, but it also cost you. Survivor's guilt, PTSD, the weight of being the only one who made it out. I put that on you, and I'm sorry. Sienna looked at this man who had taught her everything. You gave me a chance to live. I'm not sorry for that. Maybe not, but I am. Because you spent 4 years thinking you failed, thinking you should have died with us. And that's not true. You survived because you were good enough, strong enough, smart enough. That's not failure, that's success. The words settled something in Sienna that she had not known needed settling. Thank you, she said quietly. You're welcome, Marcus stood. Now I'm going to Montana, but if you ever need anything, if you ever want to talk about Yemen or anything else, you call. Promise. Promise. He left. Sienna sat alone with her coffee, watching people pass on the street outside. Regular people living regular lives, unaware of the things done in darkness to keep them safe. She finished her coffee and headed back to work, back to the hospital, back to saving lives instead of taking them. But that night when she returned to her apartment, she found a package waiting, no return address. Inside was a photograph, not the old one of her and Marcus, a new one taken at the medal ceremony. Her, Marcus, Bridger, and General Webb, 4 warriors standing together. And tucked in the corner, a handwritten note. Some ghosts deserve to rest, but others need to be ready just in case. Stay sharp, Bridger. Sienna looked at the photo for a long time. Then she put it in a frame on her desk. Next to it, she placed her silver star in its blue box. Evidence of a life lived in shadows, proof that she had been there, that she had fought, that she had won. But more importantly, proof that she had come home. The next morning she returned to Walter Reed, to patients who needed her, to a life of healing instead of killing. It was good work, honest work. And if sometimes, late at night, she opened her closet and looked at the tactical gear stored in the back, the weapons wrapped in cloth, the kit that was always ready, well, that was between her and the darkness. Because some people left the shadows and never looked back. And others left but kept one foot in the door. Just in case the world needed ghosts again. When I first discovered this story, I couldn't believe one operator carried this much weight alone. Captain Vaughn's choice, sabotaging her own side to save 3 prisoners, reminded me why we tell these stories. It's not just about the firefight. It's about the burden of knowing what's right when orders say otherwise. What struck you most? The 72-hour countdown, the moment Bridger chose to back her despite the risk, or that final choice, returning to healing instead of killing? Drop your thoughts below, and if stories like this matter to you, hit subscribe. We've got more operators whose sacrifices deserve to be heard. Next up, the sniper who held a bridge for 18 hours. You won't want to miss it.